Let me begin by stating that every story that I've ever wrote thus far has always had an element of truth. Usually 25 to 30% has been pulled from some real-life experience. This story is 100% true. The names have been changed because I simply can't remember them. There's a great deal of graphic content to this story, so if you are easily offended or if you're quite squeamish, then I recommend not to continue. You have been warned. The details of this particular story occurred well over 10 years ago. I was in my early 20s, young, dumb, and full of cum, but I get ahead of myself. I was seeing a woman who, on occasion, got the perks of her business for free due to a cancellation or a simple oversight. This usually resulted in free tickets, hotel suites, and airline accommodations. She asked me if I'd ever been to a particular franchise of fantasy suite, to which I replied, no, but I've always wanted to check them out. She informed me that a client had a reservation for a one-night stay, but canceled at the last moment, so she was given a chance to use the room. If you've ever heard of a fantasy suite, it's a special kind of hotel room that follows some fantastic theme. Whether it be outer space to ancient Japan to James Bond, the entire room is styled with that fantasy theme. This particular fantasy suite's gimmick was that they had swimming pools and hot tubs in each room. Not small pools like a 5-year-old would enjoy, but a full-sized adult pool. So these rooms were more like condos. She told me when the reservation was for, so I drove down to pick her up, and then we drove over to the fantasy suite. We pulled into the parking lot around dusk, checked in, and had the rest of the night to enjoy ourselves. Call it OCD, call it a nervous habit, but I like to explore a hotel room thoroughly before I get to enjoy my stay. The first thing I have to do is investigate all the light switches in the room. I'll flick on and off all the switches from stem to stern so that I know which switch does what. The suite itself had an interesting layout. You opened the front door to a long hallway. After entering a few feet, there was a lounge to the left with a couch and a television. Another few feet along was a small kitchenette with a bathroom across the hall. A few more feet on your right was a closet door, and then the hallway opened up into a very unusually spacious bedroom. Off to the left of the bedroom was a glass wall and a door that looked onto the pool room. The bedroom was something straight out of a 70s porno. Shag carpeting, mirrors on the walls and the ceilings, even a disco ball. The bed itself forced me to search for where I insert the coins to get it to start vibrating. The most unusual feature of this room was that there was an eyelet directly in the center of the room's ceiling. You can usually tell by the thickness of the eyelet what they're designed to hold. If the thickness is that of a pencil, it could possibly hold a potted plant. If the thickness is that of a marker, it could usually hold a lamp. This one was about as thick as a beer bottle. I enter the hallway and flick on all the switches. The first one turns on the hallway's lights, the second one lit the outside entryway. I travel further down the hallway, flicking on and off switches until I reach the bedroom. Immediately to my right, there's a set of 5 switches. The first switch illuminates the front section of the room. The second turns on the middle section, and the third, the furthest section of lights. The fourth switch activated the disco ball. The fifth switch seemed to do nothing. I switched it off, then back on. Still nothing. Interesting. I began to walk deeper into the room when I noticed that my white t-shirt was glowing a pale purple. I gasped in excitement. Black light! I ran back to the switches, flicked all of them off except for number 5. Suddenly, my excitement transformed to sheer horror. I've learned in life that 3 things glow in ultraviolet. First, after attending and graduating college, was that if you put the insert of a highlighter and drop it into a bottle of water, that water will glow the highlighter's color under blacklight. Second, I learned from CSI that you can see most of the hidden blood trails when shining them under a blacklight. The third, I learned from Law & Order SVU. Apparently, semen also glows under blacklight. Don't know why. Frankly, I don't care. It just does. The following portion of this story transpired within the confines of 60 seconds. I knew that it was the third option that now decorated the bedroom for two reasons. One, I heard this particular franchise of fantasy suite was home to a many carnal and adventurous sexual appetites. And two, the bedding had a very starched and stiff quality to it. Let us first address the sleeping conditions, the circular, non-vibrating bed. The comforter was not sprinkled with this glowing white substance. It was sodden. It was as if the previous occupants took a gallon of white paint and simply emptied its contents upon the bed. If this was an episode of CSI, I would suspect a dead hooker to be under the covers. I was mortified. I've seen stains of this nature before, but never in my wildest nightmares concocted the quantity. I was now at a crossroads. This was, for all intents and purposes, a free room. But my fortitude was being tested. Do I dare sleep on this sex mat? I prayed that this would be the worst, so I pulled back the stiff and crunchy bedspread and gazed upon the top sheet. My prayers were not answered. I didn't think it possible, but the second layer of bedding was worse than the top layer. Could it have been possible that the top layer seeped through? No! I was sure to discover a corpse under this layer. The final layer, thankfully, was clean. It might not have been, but since the sheets were white and the entire fitted sheet glowed in the ultraviolet, I figured ignorance is bliss. My head was swimming with an amount of filth that would make Hannibal Lecter squeamish. I spun around to alert my date when I discovered horror number 2. There, on the wall, about eye level, was a splatter of glowing white about the size of a Pilates ball. The stain was applied with so much force that the trail stretched over 5 feet in all directions. Randy Johnson must have pitched a 95-mile-an-hour fastball at the wall. Whatever the ball was made of, it did not bounce back, but slid down the wall. And unfortunately, over the 5 light switches I fondled earlier, I was violated by another man's seed. I slowly wiped my hands on my pants and closed my eyes. Dear Lord, I threw my head back. If you get me out of this, I opened my eyes to gaze upon the mirrored ceiling. I swear that I'll... Oh, Jesus, they got it on the ceiling! A few questions ran through my mind at this point. A, how the hell did they get it up that far? B, why would you want to get it up that far? C, how did they get so much up that far? Upon fully inspecting the ungodly amount that was caked upon the ceiling, 2 words came to mind. Jackson Pollock. It was a cataclysmic array of splatters and drips and trails that was hypnotizing as well as horrific. I wept like a little girl. I didn't want to touch anything. I didn't know what to touch. I turned to look at the exit. I saw a door off to the side. I wanted to crawl within and hide for decades. I threw open the closet door that lay just beyond the perimeter of the bedroom. I stood there, gazing within, daring not to set one footfall within. My head slowly cranked toward the ceiling of the bedroom, and logic connected the two for me. I understood why such a thick, girthy eyelet in the ceiling. There, hanging neatly on a specially made hanger of steel, was a black leather sex swing built for 3. The pieces all started to fit. The amount that was left behind, the patterns upon the walls and ceiling, the way the shag carpet crunched under my feet. There had been much enthusiastic fornication in this room prior to our visit, and we were made witness to the toll it took upon the interior. The lady I was with was retrieving items from the car while this awakening had transpired. As she entered the suite, I could tell by her facial expression that she smelt something in the air. A scent of stale coitus and shame, with a hint of jasmine. I closed the closet door and turned to her, tears still running down my cheeks. "What's wrong, honey?" she exclaimed. She dropped her cargo and held me tight. My lips pressed against her ear as I slowly pointed towards the boudoir. "Don't go in there," I whispered. She giggled at my request and turned to enter the bedroom. I grabbed her wrist forcefully and repeated myself. "Don't go in there. Trust me," I pleaded. She scoffed, as I was known to jest more times than often, so my words of warning were in vain. She headed into the dark, dimly glowing chamber. I turned to face the front door. I knew her reaction would not be good. I slowly headed for the exit. Suddenly, a soft hand grasped my shoulder and spun me around. Her face, normally cheery and rosy, was now sunken, solemn, and gray. A tear ran down her delicate cheek. "We're staying at my place tonight,"